It's time. It's time. Oh, yeah. Watercooler.
Episode number 457, a reusable block by any other name.
A rose, a block, a love.
I'm Jason Tucker. Go to my website at jasontucker.blog, where I do a
Where's
bunch
the
of fun
rose?
stuff over there.
He does stuff. He does do stuff. I'm Say Reed. I do stuff too. All up in the make these days. At Say Reed Media on all the things.
And y'all know who it is. It's your boy Jason Cosper, aka Fat Momo Mike, back at it again on the world's most influential WordPress podcast.
Go subscribe to that podcast if you're so inclined. You don't want to watch us, you can do that over there. And you can come hang out with us in Discord in the text version of the show, if you will.
Watch us because you want to. I think it'd be really funny to do like a time lapse of all of the years of like my different hairstyles. Like when
Sounds like you're making some work for yourself.
And like when the hair's wet and then dries. Like, okay?
Tucker just said not it.
Yeah, he's like
Right here.
I feel like there's some people in the audience who could do that.
Yep.
I don't know. Just maybe.
Courtney.
Courtney's
Hello.
Hey, Courtney. How you doing today?
Good. I am just back from WordCamp Montclair, as my shirt would represent today.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, Joss.
Yost knew it was him. Host. Host.
Yeah.
How was Montclair?
It was delightful. So it takes place on this college campus that's a journalism school. And the students have to do so many hours of broadcast as part of their program. So we have production quality gear recording at Montclair. And so fantastic facility.
Nice.
It was a nice camp in terms of size was still pretty small, a good mixture of different types of backgrounds. It is, Montclair, New Jersey is as close to New York City as New Jersey can get.
So it's like para New York.
Yeah, suburbs of the city, but in Jersey.
Okay,
Northern
so
Jersey,
that's
technically.
actually funny because that's a good segue. I can make anything a segue, but that is a good segue. It's kind of New York. It's kind of New Jersey. Just like we're going to kind of be in Washington, D.C. or kind of in Maryland for WordCamp US this year.
Yep.
And that leads us right into the conversation about nomenclature and naming. That is
Reusable word camps? Is that what we're talking about?
Word camps. Yes. Actually, I mean, there's a whole conversation to be had about whether a word camp by any other type of word camp is still a word camp. Like, what is a word camp? Because there's a whole dialogue and fresh new word camps happening. But
Future show.
Yeah, different show, future show. But this one is, we definitely, there are some other things I do want to hit on other than this particular topic. But I think that the shift from reusable blocks to synced patterns is really notable for a lot of reasons. One, and I'll just hit mine and then we can talk about it more, but just one is that naming is important, and having to rename things later, complicated.
Yeah.
So I'd love to get into that. And then also, patterns and blocks, like specifically, like I'd like to talk about like that. We've actually mentioned on this show before, like we've talked about, wait, is that a pattern or is that a block? Or is that a template part? Wait, are those all the same thing? Not
and what's
sure.
the difference between them? Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, those are my two things that I want to hit on today. If anyone wants to start on those or amend it, please let me know. Or let us know. Please go ahead, is what I should say.
Yeah, actually, I am going to bring, to kind of set the context for things. I actually saw a tweet today that I will share here in the chat that I thought was really on par. Jamie, who is Poodle Press, known YouTuber, which we're on right now. Hey, Jamie, if you're watching. Jamie shared in Twitter. The topic was over there. We're not going down this rabbit hole of the topic, but should we call it Gutenberg? And should we refer to things as Gutenberg anymore? And Jamie shared.
This is a current tweet?
Yes, it was like within the last day. And so the argument was, please stop calling it that unless you're referring to the plugin. And then Jamie, the YouTuber, swings in with some SEO terms around, well, here is why we continue to call it that. And ta-da, some SEO terms that are about this. So it got me thinking also about how we name other things in WordPress and how that terminology evolves or changes over time.
Site editor.
Yes.
Site editor.
Yes, and how we need to be thoughtful about our terminology from the absolute beginning and not just change it on a whim or change it because somebody thought it was a good idea to change it down the road, because we have this entire ecosystem surrounding us that makes the search engine terms that people look for that should bring them to WordPress.org to find the information they need. And how do we get out of this, Say?
I don't know, honestly. Like this is so there's so many places in which this is an issue.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not just so. Here's something that's also worthy of note: the switch to and Courtney and I were actually talking about this. Was this last week or this week? I don't even remember.
Time
back
is
and
weird.
Forth. Time. Back and forth when it was being announced, and Courtney, you were like, "Wait. Is this happening? Wait, I guess this is happening? Oh, so now they're this?" Because the process for changing the name, which has been is being officially renamed in 6.3, right? Which is currently in beta 2, which is beta 1. But
yeah, so I can explain that one, but it's not relevant right now.
Not relevant, but don't worry about it.
Move on.
But so 6.3 is going to have synced patterns instead of reusable blocks. Now, reusable blocks have been in there since Gutenberg, or since
I want to say it was probably around 5.9, maybe 5.8.
Oh, was it that
5.8? I mean, it was not terribly long ago. I would definitely say not before 5.6.
Okay. Well, so, regardless, it's been out, and the interesting thing of note is that there have been many conversations about naming in the WordPress space, including the conversation that around the wayfinder or command palette or search bar that shows you stuff or potential new place for AI commands.
Yeah.
I really don't understand. Have not really. There's so much in that I have not even gone down that rabbit hole, but I do know that it was a dialogue within the community, because one of the members of the marketing team, who is also an onomatician, just clarification, posted a proposal to call that the Wayfinder and posted it in, I believe, GitHub, right?
Yep.
Gutenberg GitHub repo, right?
Yep. And I've shared the link for that. And then also cross-posted it to like the full site editing outreach channel and a few other places.
Right. So that is that dialogue was actually getting a lot of traction from within the community, and not just, the small make community that's contributing. This was getting some interaction from outside of in the larger ecosystem, which I'm very glad about, because it was just like, we're going to just randomly name things.
Actually, I'm going to halt in there and interject. At Montclair, I gave a talk called We Are They, and it's about contributing to WordPress, and sometimes that can be low lift things. People get intimidated about GitHub, and the conversation that we're having right now was a conversation that was also happening in GitHub. Please think of it as the discussion that's happening was on par with support forums in terms of the functionality. No, yes, you don't
have to code to be in GitHub. You're just commenting your thoughts.
Yep. Like, so a lot of the way that .org teams are using GitHub is kind of like Trello and kind of like support forums, where it's just interacting back and forth on the issue. So voices most definitely were welcomed and encouraged on this post. And there you go.
Get in there.
I will be the first to say
live feed.
I will be the first to say, and others, that I am proud of the way that the community came in to comment on that particular GitHub issue, that it was respectful, even if disagreeable. We haven't always seen that in the WordPress space previously. So that was an example of a lot of people weighing in that was actually quite good in the way that they worked out the ideas that were there. Good
and I mean, and that's, I mean, that's the way it's supposed to work, because we are bringing in perspectives from different areas. If we're only looking at this small group of perspectives, it's easy to come up with solutions that work for that small group. But some of the people who were commenting, like hosts, our listener who's listening right now, was commenting on the translatability of something like Wayfinder, which is a big part of WordPress's global positioning, but also a big part of phase 4, which is phase 4 of the Gutenberg lifecycle, which is internationalization. And making translation just, kind of a core part of WordPress. And so it's easy to get distracted by English, honestly.
Yeah.
Because everything is happening, and it's easy to just like it's easy to keep going and not have accessibility questions come up. It's easy to keep going and not have, how does this translate into another language come up?
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that there are people in our community who are speaking up and saying, there's no translation for that in Spanish, let alone XYZ language. And pointing out some of the struggles that people have already with translating components of WordPress.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm thinking specifically about in 6.3 when they changed the name from Reusable Blocks to Sync Patterns, all of the translations that will then need to be changed.
Right. This is a lot of work.
The places, all the places that Reusable Blocks are being reused, for lack of a better. No, I just wanted to make the pun. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a good pun. We got it. I love the pun.
Yeah. So for all the places that it's being used, like every single language pack, it now needs to be modified. Like the community now needs to play catch up because they couldn't thread the needle and get the naming right the first time.
Or even take which happened with the Wayfinder, because it hadn't been introduced yet. So it was proposed, right? It's being proposed in the Gutenberg plugin, which is not the same thing as being proposed in a WordPress core release, which is what we talked about last week. The Gutenberg WordPress, where Gutenberg goes, WordPress shall follow. So this conversation about the Wayfinder was happening in Gutenberg, which is where the naming is starting. And then that naming is going to be carried through into WordPress. We're not going to, well, we might, but we should not be renaming things once they get from Gutenberg to WordPress. We should, this is part of that. Where's the process actually starting concept process that we're trying to figure out. But the reusable blocks and sync patterns change was not done in that context. Like, it did not have a public conversation about, should we change this? There are issues that have been brought up, and it has been discussed in the past. So there are some threads, including, I believe, originally when the Gutenberg plugin first was being proposed and reusable blocks were being proposed, they talked about some of the different naming things. But the interesting thing in this instance is that they being whomever made this decision, which I don't know actually who it is. So the 6.3 release squad, I suppose, trying to name the theys, so that we know who we're talking about.
I did put the GitHub issue. I did put the GitHub issues into our private chat that's here in the show. The first one is to the terminology of Wayfinder versus the second GitHub link is to the proposal to rename things. And that proposal initiated in 2021. I usually will scan Gutenberg issues most weekdays. I do a skim over the headlines of what new issues have been filed since the last weekday, and pay attention to the ones I would like to follow further. I wasn't doing that in August of 2021. So so that wasn't high on my radar at that time, like these days, to then be able to bring it in. And it looks like that conversation was taking some shape early then. And I'm not like
it was, but it was calling synced blocks rather than reusable blocks. And then in March of this year, Anne, who is basically the main full site editing just guru. I don't ever use that word, but let's be real. That's what they
Yeah,
are.
Anne's amazing.
Yeah, like the linchpin of full site.
Knowing what's happening in a release.
The conversation in March touched upon in that particular GitHub ticket, again in Gutenberg, touched on changing the patterns should be involved in that. But then that conversation did not go any further. So basically it's like a conversation that was happening in the past and had a little bit of updates over the past, a few months ago, and then was just subsumed into WordPress into 6.3. And I don't know if we have tracked that particular renaming path, but what's your question, Tucker?
Yeah. What is a pattern? So let me just paint you a picture. Let me paint you a picture real quick. So
Sewing patterns.
I was under the impression that a pattern was a collection of blocks that were brought together in a way that allows for you to be able to just drag them over and drop them and do it. Yeah. And now we have
it's essentially
syncing ones.
And
we have non-syncing ones.
So this is actually really interesting, and it actually touches on a component of partially synced patterns.
Like I understand those two, but what's a pattern? Because a pattern is a collection of them. It's like an array of items versus a single item, which would be a block.
It is an array of items, and so as an array is a single thing.
And I don't want to get stuck in an array because there's
the pattern is a collection of blocks. So it is interesting because, and this is something that I would have liked to dialogue about before it got renamed, because yes, you can have a synced pattern, but you can also have just one block that is reusable. Right. And if you have just one block that is reusable, it's not a pattern. So taking away that name, essentially, I don't know what you then call that thing. Like, I don't.
One crow is not a murder.
Although, let's add to the complexity. I picked up while going through our friend Morten Rand Hendrickson's WordPress videos, which he is no longer making, but I was going through some of those several years ago, soon after the reusable blocks came out, and Morten demonstrated basically a hacky way to put multiple blocks into the reusable blocks. So it was possible. But we only called them a reusable block, intending for it to be a singular, but you could hack around with it and make it multiple.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that patterns and reusable patterns should not exist.
Right.
I'm not saying that at all. I am saying that they are different components, and you can have a singular reusable block, which to me is a very handy tool to pull in, where you're like, here's my bio block, or here's the, check out our Discord that we could pull into the bottom of every post, or, whatever that happens to be, without getting into the conversation of should that be a template part or
I'm not saying this needs to be a bunch or a bushel or a party or I don't know, like things
a party of blocks.
multiple items in a thing, but I just the idea of pattern and then us doing these other things to the pattern, and then
pattern itself, and Courtney, maybe you can speak to this. So I don't actually know where the first instance of pattern came about. Patterns are essentially layouts, right? That is what they are in a more in a builder format, like in a builder language. It's like you import a layout or a module that has stuff in it, but or a layout has modules in it, right? Just like a pattern has blocks in it. I think that pattern is confusing, and I think that it doesn't translate well to people who are using WordPress, like business people. They're like, pattern, it's a very designy tool. It's a very term. It's a very
and it gets mixed up with templates, because the page builders would call the layouts templates.
Yeah,
but we have a different term. We have a different meaning for what's a template.
Right.
Oh, words are hard.
And then we have templates and template parts. So it's not just templates, because, you can have a template part that's part of a bunch of templates. But then can you have multiple patterns inside your parts with reusable blocks inside them that are
we just going to rename everything? Is that what's going to happen just so we can make sure it's all translatable?
Headless is looking awfully appealing with all these parts lying everywhere. So here's the thing.
A butchery of
so patterns,
do like a pig diagram. They have the diagrams,
the Alton Brown ones.
the ground and the chuck and the ribeye
So-
or whatever it is.
Patterns were created with the intent that if there's an image there, you swap the image and put your own in. If there's a paragraph of text, you take out the preloaded and you put your own in.
And currently there is no, once you place a pattern, there is no tie back to the original pattern. They basically dissolve into individual blocks.
Yes, except that if you're now synchronizing them. I will say we've got 9 minutes. One of the issues that I found right before we
just spent 10
went
minutes
live.
saying words. So there's that.
So
What
right
is a podcast but saying words?
Okay, I have a GitHub issue to go log right after this because if someone goes to use a reusable block right now in the beta version, I believe that they should still find where that has moved to. And
is it on now?
It is. So if you were to, because you have to go put it in from a pattern, and then the experience
because there's a new patterns tab within the site editor. Now, if you're not using full site editing templates or themes, you don't have to worry about this.
Actually wrong. If you're using it inside of a post or a page, you do say.
Wait, oh my God, because if you're using, right. So wait, the patterns aren't just,
no.
God.
Yeah. This is all.
You know, I came into this with so many questions and now I have so many more.
That's fantastic. Let's see if we can help with the confusion. I usually like to help with confusing things.
I'm gonna mute myself because I'm just literally over here laughing and I don't even know what to do about it. I just can't keep it together today.
Wow.
Courtney, can you explain it? I really at what point are we caring about the people using the software?
Right. So this is me caring about using the software.
Are they reusable?
What is the experience of someone that has now become so used to the reusable block and they don't know that feature has changed? And when they go to use their existing reusable block, what is that experience for them going to be in 6.3, and how will they find where what they had in reusable blocks has moved to now?
Is it moving? So, is it just gonna pick up and their block will now be in the synced patterns land?
I will be making a GitHub ticket about this one, a Gutenberg specific
happening right
Gutenberg
now.
issue. Okay, I'm having a hard time with my words. My words are having a hard time. Gutenberg issue, not a GitHub ticket. Why did I say that? I will make one of those when our show ends.
Hold on, this is in 6.3, not in Gutenberg.
But you have to log it in the right place. Yep.
It's no one. I mean, it's people are I don't understand why people don't contribute more.
Contributing's easy.
It's so easy.
I understand. I understand completely.
Yeah.
You pick up and then you just contribute, there's nothing to know.
All right. So
Courtney is literally one of the most knowledgeable people in the entire WordPress ecosystem. And she's literally sitting here going, that's true facts. She's literally sitting here saying, I think I should file that there. I'm not, I guess, perhaps. She
I could also go to the
summaries for every release, and still it is not conclusive, which is not your fault. It is the project's fault. So I'm just
well, I'm going to log it and then stick it in front of some of the release leads that are oh yeah, we should fix that. Let them tell me if I put it in the right place or where I should go.
Oh my God.
Wow.
So,
tell me where to go.
This is happening. This is in 6.3. This is converting. So we're still unclear on where the existing reusable blocks are going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what, if it's just one block that's reusable, it's still a pattern.
Yeah.
I want to just, sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, please finish your thoughts.
I was going to bring in a new thing. So I think you should say your thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that we are going to end up with a plugin like the classic editor that will be called Reusable Blocks that will just restore the functionality back to the way people like it? Because I feel
I think you should make it. I think you should
let's I want to be a plugin admin and have a plugin of my own in the repo, and thank you for that idea.
Are we going to also give this to Drupal so they can do the same? That's what I want to know.
Well, luckily for Drupal, they probably haven't adopted it so much yet, and because it's not going into 6.3, right? So I think that is it in Gutenberg and in 6.3 or See, this is why we talked about this last week, this Gutenberg WordPress thing, because it's not clear. It's not clear at all where the changes are actually supposed to be implemented. Like if Gutenberg does a thing, which then goes out to the greater ecosystem, the greater Gutenberg ecosystem, Drupal or Tumblr or whatever, then we should probably not be renaming those concepts within WordPress. So that means that Gutenberg is kind of the final frontier for that. And we will just be like, otherwise we're separating ourselves again from what's, kind of that core development. And we can't be doing that. Can't be doing that.
I'm going to give a quick plug in there for a plugin. James Tryon and crew run this one, missing menu items. And it puts things back like links to where the navigation menus are.
There you go, Cosper.
So I'm going to take a wild guess that James will be on if Core and or Gutenberg do not fix the issue in a timely manner, that links to get to the reusable blocks will be made visible once again.
Well, so I mean, like I said, there's a couple of problems here. Yeah. One is we don't know how to like there's problems with the actual implementation, like where are the blocks going? Not clear. Two, that naming concept of it was this long-term, like where is that decision? This is a problem across the project, is that like some discussion is happening, and suddenly there's a decision that is not logged in the same place as the discussion. And that is where the gap happens. This is what happened with the sustainability team being discussed, the proposals being discussed, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's a team. And the team itself, the initiative, did not even know what they were going to do with their new mandate that included two huge other components, social sustainability and economic sustainability, that had not even remotely been part of their discussion and was not part of their team proposal. So in between the conversation that was happening about naming, should we name the sustainability team sustainability team if it is only about environmental sustainability, right? Because that then is, basically cutting out these two other massive components about sustainability, social sustainability and economic sustainability. And between that discussion, and I know this because I made a comment, and before anyone replied to my comment and there was no more discussion on that, the team was created and given the mandate to do environmental, social, and economic sustainability. But there's no documentation of that discussion. I believe that it happened at WordCamp Europe, literally at the table. And they say they will be documenting that for me at some point. But this gap of discussion, and then decision coming from outside is another reason that people struggle with contribution, because you can sit there and give your opinion and make your arguments and have a great dialogue. And then it's like an invisible hand comes in from somewhere and just doesn't even say, well, thanks for your input, but we think that doesn't make sense because of this. It's just done. And the conversation is just over. And from an interpersonal perspective, that would literally be like walking away in the middle of a conversation and just being like, well, I've decided now, bye. And it's very jarring, but this is also contributes to the reason that people do not contribute as actively, because they take the time to write these concepts. I know that, for example, Leslie, whose last name is not Pizza, but her handle, so that's basically what it is in my brain.
Leslie Sim.
Yes. Yeah, I was like, I think it's Sim.
Leslie not Pizza.
Does amazing comments, makes amazing comments, and really brings a lot of insight to so many conversations. And then it just disappears. Like they just are decided, and those
much
really
like Aruba
are not, exactly like Aruba as well. Those great points are not even brought somewhere else, right? They're not like, the discussion is not like, okay, well, we're going to do this now, like with the most viable, minimally viable product. And then we'll talk about adding these things later, which is what I do with websites. Once a client has gotten to a certain point, right, in the launchability of their site, it's like, okay, we need to do a feature freeze and fix the stuff that's happening, and then we'll add more stuff later.
See, this is a pattern. When you have multiple
pattern.
issues and you put them together, it's a pattern.
It's a
issues.
pattern. It's a pattern.
Is a
Here's a
pattern
pattern of issues. We used to call it full site editing and global styles. Now it's site editor and just styles.
Yeah, and the real problem is, so there's the two problems. The discussions and the decisions are happening in a way that aren't clear to the community. They're happening in a discuss, boom, implementation, and then the not outreach, but the rollout of those terminologies, those decisions are not handled well. And I can say that specifically with this because I know that Courtney does so much of the documentation for training for the releases. No,
I at least find what needs to change. I will say that. I don't necessarily create all the content.
Right.
I at least find what needs to be changed. Yes.
I appreciate you being
that
clear,
the people
support to everyone.
You would think that the people that write books about WordPress would have more to say about this. The people that like you, where you're curating these pieces and putting them together, and other people are writing them, and however you want to describe, that whole role.
Yeah.
At least that thing is dynamic.
Yeah, I mean,
somebody who actually writes a book. Can you imagine?
This is why they don't release new editions very frequently. Mm-hmm. I have heard from the WordPress book authors. If you ask people like Brad, they don't release their books particularly often because that's a big rewrite in terms of
for it to flesh out a little
terminology.
bit.
We're gonna make those figure out.
I
was talking earlier this week
glossary
about this topic with. Let's have
glossary.
A glossary topic.
Sorry.
I was talking with Nyasha Green about the patterns. Who's the new co-rep for the marketing team? Yes, and hopefully we'll have on the show here soon. I think we've had it before. I can't remember. And she does a presentation. She's literally like presents this at meetups and whatever. And she's like, I just finished writing out my blocks component, and she's like, wait, what? I didn't even hear about this. Like, there's no notification. She has to change her entire presentation to not include this component and rework it to include synced patterns and all this new stuff. And like, people could literally be teaching the wrong material like immediately. Like, as soon as this has happened multiple times to me, that as soon as a new release is released, all of your materials are totally
this is
plug for docs and training. Come help us, please. Docs and training team wildly appreciate that. Also help test. There is a call for testing for this particular release. Go through that call for testing. Let the test team give them lots of comments and feedback. But the docs and the training team are also working with locale ambassadors like Joss, and also with over in training, we're working a lot with Margarita, Pierre Mario, which is overseeing the India community. We've got a lot of contributors that are specifically overseeing locales, so that not only do we have to see Gutenberg is changing this particular thing, I could cross-reference it to that in our materials, but then also the locale ambassadors have to look at the versions of that in all of the additional languages and now make the same type of change in all the languages. So
this is not just a one-off little we're going to change it in a code in one place and then it's done. Like, this is a big decision and a big impact for something that seems really small, but especially because it is not being made. I mean, we're making it a big deal.
Yes.
But like the decision, and I don't want to criticize the folks who are in 6.3 because it's been a wild ride. Just and I'm not really sure how to solve this problem, because we as a WordPress community, as a make community, don't have a lot of standards by which to make these decisions, or to say, okay, if we're going to rename things, we need to provide some notice. We need to say, hey, community. And that's something the training team has been working to do. But again, everyone's so completely understaffed that they can barely keep up with the main code and development changes that are happening in 6.3, let alone provide additional notifications about that stuff. And the marketing team could also do that. However, we are completely understaffed, I should say, and fighting a whole bunch of other side quests. So we need you people. If you're listening to this, we need you. Please come join us.
And I really appreciate folks like I gave Jamie the shout out at the beginning of this Poodle Press YouTuber, folks like that are impacted well after we make our decisions about getting that feedback from all the bloggers, all the YouTubers about the impact of the fallout of us renaming the things. I think that's really important too, not just inside of .org fixing it, which is a big undertaking, but then the way that people refer to it in an ongoing way.
Because those things are out there. Like, it's not like everyone's redoing their YouTube content, right? Like they will, but like
it's as bad as a book.
They have collections, they have course curriculum. Like it's literally blocks, and reusable blocks has been an adopted component. And by changing it rather than expanding it, it has created just boatloads, just so much more work for the entire community, the make community, the training team, the docs team, people who use it, agencies, anyone who has any training materials that they've written for their clients, all those YouTube videos. Like, this is a small change in text that has a massive change across the ecosystem.
This is why we made fun of it in our own title of the show, is because of the fact that it's going to have to exist anyhow. So we might as well just be wrong. So let's just be wrong from the get-go and just call it a reusable block. Just,
I know we're on overtime. We got to go. But like, for reals, it's still going to exist. You can't.
Yeah.
The pattern is a group of blocks. Then one block is not a pattern, or is it a square? Like how a square is a rectangle, even though it's a square.
I know that we try hard to make shows that are a little more evergreen or whatever, but I know that we definitely have some episodes there that have just aged like milk.
They're just totally useless. Exactly.
Let's move on to the ones with wine.
This is better over time. All right. Well, we have a lot more to talk about next week and the week after and the week after. Join our Discord.
Thanks as always.
Yeah, please do.
Come chat with us.
Here is our outro.
Hey, listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, TIL Vids. Today I learned about that too. It'll be Dev Branch next week on the 1st. Subscribe, join our Discord, come chat with us, hit us up on the social media. We want your input.